Morning, good morning, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, champions of the world, wherever you are in the world. We are coming in live to do another episode of the podcast. So I'm going to bring in all of our crew across the Facebooks, across the Instagrams, across the YouTube, across the LinkedIn. We're going everywhere. So if you're coming into this one live, guys, you know the drill. Get down in the comments there and hashtag I'm live. Or if you're coming in to watch this one on replay, do exactly that. We're going to start this episode in 2 minutes. And so would love to hear how your week's going, guys. What's going on? I hope you're having a beautiful, beautiful start to the week. Things are here strong on a Monday in Better Body Academy. We're pumped. By the way, to everyone that is crushing the push-up challenge, well done, because it's starting to test us with these push-ups. I don't know about you, but my boobs are feeling sore. Things are looking good. So we're going to kickstart this one in 1 minute, team. And so get down into the comments there and let us know that you are ready to rock and roll. And we're going to start this one up in one moment. So I'm just going to tag one of my boys who asked the question. And that way we can make sure that, he sees the good stuff. So guys, how's the start to your week been? I hope you're having a banger. We are live in 30 seconds with the next episode of the podcast. So if you're coming into this one, make sure that you hashtag replay and let us know that you're here, that you got the value. And if you want me to do an episode on something that you not sure about, haven't talked about yet, then I'd love to do so. G'day, Michaela. Hey, Loz. I hope you girls are good. And hey, JJ, I hope you're well. Maxi Boy. Hello, Maxi Boy. How are you, mate? Yeah, Saw here as well. Yeah, I feel you, brother. I feel you. All right. So I'm going to kickstart this good thing. And I think we are ready to rock and roll, both on TikTok and Instagram as well. Let's get stuck into this. 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Welcome back to the Better Body Academy podcast. This is the podcast that you come to when you are sick of the dumb diets and unsustainable workout programs. Now, my brothers, my sisters from other mothers, we're going to be talking a little bit about Ozempic and weight loss. And so I think that I'm going to give it a little bit of background first, and then I'm not going to pretend to be the absolute king of this. It's a very new thing. It's taking the world by storm, particularly the US. And so let's get stuck into what I want to discuss here. So Ozempic, what is this medication? So there has been many a medication that has come and promised benefits that are going to change the world. And then, of course, those benefits are proven to be very modest or non-existent, and then that medication goes out the back door. However, more recently, particularly in the US and Canada, we've seen the arrival of a medication called Ozempic. It has a number of different other forms or names, and the basics of this medication are that it helps you to lose weight predominantly through regulating both your blood sugar, your insulin levels, and, of course, your appetite. So we all know that fat loss or gain comes down to calorie balance. Unless you've been standing under a rock, living under a rock, you already know that, right? However, I want to talk to you about the general concerns that I would have about it. Now, this is not going to be a live that I'm going to bash a medication actually. Actually, I think that for some people, it could be highly beneficial. But you need to know the things I'm about to tell you if you are choosing to take this medication or if your doctor prescribes it. Now, I just want to make a note point. To my understanding, you can get this in the US pretty freely. Okay, I am not sure what the circumstances are in other parts of the world. My understanding is that if you're in the UK or Canada or Australia, you would still need to have a prescription. And predominantly, it's going to be prescribed by doctors to people who have diagnosed diabetes type 2. And that's because the original intention of the medication was as a diabetes medication. Okay? Now, let's talk about what the concerns are going to be. If you have, so this medication has proven to be fairly effective. There are some predictions that this medication could be something that 50% of the US is on in the next 2 to 5 years. The truth of it is that if you present people with a magic pill versus lifestyle, most people are just going to take the magic pill, right? That's just the nature of humans. We want everything now, okay? And I don't blame that. If we could lose fat quickly, we would, right? Now, there are some concerns with that, and these are similar to the concerns that I would have with going the weight loss surgery route. We have a number of men and women inside of our transformation program in Better Body Academy that have had weight loss surgery. Those surgeries are either a bypass surgery or a gastric sleeve surgery. In those two surgeries, what's effectively happening is the amount of food that you can consume is limited, right? Now, obviously, if you've got a smaller stomach and a smaller intestine, a smaller gut overall, what's effectively going to happen is you're going to get fuller quicker, right? So because you're fuller quicker, then you're not going to eat as many calories. And this is effectively the same mechanism by which our medication is going to work. Ozempic is going to work predominantly by reducing your overall calorie intake. And your calorie intake is going to go down because you're not hungry. I haven't myself tried this medication. I know that there's a lot of fitness influencers in the space that are trying it just so they know what their patients are going to or their clients are going to go through. Secretly, what I think is actually happening is fitness people particularly are very sensitive, right? And so what a lot of fitness people do is they masquerade that it's for their clients, but actually they want to try to get an edge. And I think that's what's happening to a lot of people in the fitness space. So I just want to try it on behalf of my clients. What you're trying to do is get the last bit of fat off you so you look extra shredded. And that's interesting because I'm very confident that I could take Ozempic and I'd get pretty diced. The reason the reason I'm not diced, the reason I'm sit at about 15 to 16% body fat is because you know what? When it gets to the end of the night, I'm just like you. I love having that little bit of ice cream or a beer on the weekend or whatever it is. And that extra consumption of, 2 to 500 calories a day is what keeps people out of the zone of which they're in a calorie deficit. That's the reason why we're not losing weight. And so the way that Ozempic works is it's actually pushing your appetite down, meaning you're not going to have the same amount of desire for food, right? Now, my understanding is that with this medication, that desire will, after you start taking the medication, within 2 to 5 days will really start to kick in. And at that point onwards, you're not going to be repulsed by food. You're just not going to have that same constant drive to want to consume it, right? To the same levels that you probably do now. And so the issue is going to be twofold that I can see immediately. If you significantly reduce the amount of calories that you eat, let's say that you're currently eating 3,500 to 4,000 calories a day, let's just say, and you're gaining weight, and then all of a sudden, as a consequence of a medication that you're taking, that medication shoots you down to 1,000, 1,500 calories or less per day. Instantly, you're going to lose a lot of fat. But the problem with this is that you are also going to lose a lot of muscle. You see, when you lose fat, you do not get to when you lose weight on the scales, you do not get to choose what you're losing. In all circumstances, when someone, even a bodybuilder that goes through a bulk and then a cut, in nearly all circumstances, they won't just lose pure fat. They will lose a lot of muscle. And so here's the challenge. If you've gone from eating 4,000 calories down to 1,000 calories or less, you are running out of petrol big time. You got your foot on the accelerator and it's not moving. And so as a consequence of what's going to happen is the body's running out of petrol. It's going to get what it can from the body and break that down. So yes, a good portion of that will be fat. Another solid portion of this is going to be muscle. Now, a lot of you guys are going to think to yourself, well, I don't give a fuck. I don't care. I just want to weigh less. Perhaps we need to understand the consequences of losing muscle. Number one, you're probably going to get really weak over time. Number two, your metabolism is going to tank quickly. Now, what does that actually mean? Have you heard the stories of people joining The Biggest Loser? And they'll lose 50 to 80 kilograms over the course of a few months. And then all of a sudden, they regain the weight back again. Why are they regaining the weight? Well, number one is because they've been unable to continue living on such low level of calories. But in addition to that, when your musculature of your body starts to shrink, it's like your engine size is shrinking. And when your engine size is shrinking, I want you to imagine that being like going from having a big truck as an engine when you're 20 years old to having this little kind of lawnmower engine that's like, beep, 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 beep. It's just not burning much petrol. When people hit their 30s and 40s and start to put on weight, part of the problem is that they are losing muscle, and this muscle continues to be lost as they get older. This might give you an idea of why resistance training is actually really, really important. So what I predict is going to happen is, number one, we're going to go from having a bunch of people that are very heavy on the scales, but are still able to do stuff, live, to actually what's going to happen is we're going to have a whole bunch of people that have not only lost a lot of weight, but have lost a lot of muscle, and their lifestyle is going to be massively impacted. Massively impacted. What I mean here is that they're going to struggle to do basic activities like picking up the kids because they've gone from having this big amount of muscle, but with fat, to losing it all. This is shrinking their metabolism. And at the same time, you and I both know that you might have a lot of body fat, but under that body fat, there is some muscle, like I'm showing you on the live feed. And so all of a sudden, if you take away that muscle from being in a huge calorie deficit as a consequence of taking Ozempic, what's going to happen is you're just going to be really, really spongy. And this idea of like skinny fat is not going to, that's going to be your thing. Okay? You might have lost a bunch of fat, but if you've got no body composition, none of the good stuff to actually hold you in place, well, what have you then? I don't really think you're going to look that much better. It's probably going to end up in a bit of a bag of bones, if that makes sense. So, with this being put to the side, I certainly do believe that Ozempic has a potential to be used effectively and safely. And I want to give you the things you need to do to make sure that you do this if you are considering this medication or if you get put on this medication by your doctor, okay? Number one is when you are decreasing your calorie intake to the level that Ozempic will lead to, which will be substantial because you will pretty much lose your appetite, you need to make sure that you are getting enough protein in. Okay, you have to make sure you're getting enough protein in. The vast majority of the world, are under-consuming protein, in my opinion, by probably 100%. Most people could double their protein intake, and that would be a very good move for them. What that would do is help them when they're running out of petrol to at least try to maintain muscle mass by giving you enough of the building blocks. So what you do not want to happen is your calories tank as a consequence of reduced appetite, but so does your protein intake. What you would ideally like to happen is that the calories that are coming predominantly from carbohydrate and to a degree fat are reduced, certainly alcohol are reduced, but your protein intake remains high. So that's number one. Number two, the things that you would have to do, have to get right, is actually, before I move on to number two, just going to my client who asked the question, as part of our meal planning, we typically do a little bit of fasting in our plan. What I would say is that if you are fasting and taking Ozempic, that is going to make it almost impossible for you to get in enough protein. So JJ, if you're watching this, what I want to make sure that you understand is clear as day. Do not fast, okay? You do not want to be fasting. You want to be eating enough protein over the course of a day, okay? Starting with a decent high protein meal or shake at the start of the day to get in 40 to 50 grams of protein. We then want to have it again at lunch, and it might not be a big feed because you're not hungry, but we need to make sure that we're prioritizing protein. And if you're fasting, what's going to happen is your meal window is going to be too small, and you're going to run out of time at the end of the day to get your protein intake in. That's going to cause muscle loss. That's going to cause further problems down the track. So number two is, if you're going to be taking Ozempic or your doctor prescribes it, you 100% need to be doing resistance strength training. 100%. Like, if you go and do Ozempic and then you pump that with a bunch of cardio or no exercise, you're going to have big problems. I'm telling you, you're going to have big problems. You need to make sure that you're giving your body the signal to maintain its muscle mass. And the two ways that you would do that are feeding it enough protein and doing resistance training, the very activity that stimulates muscle growth. So while you're in this phase of which you are in a calorie deficit, you're breaking down fat, you also want to be sending the signal, hey, but don't steal my muscle. Does this make sense? Let me know in the comments if this makes sense, guys, please. Now, the third thing that you would need to understand if you are going to take Ozempic or you're going to be prescribed Ozempic is this. To my knowledge, everything that I have read is that this regulation of your appetite will return 3 to 5 days after you start taking the medication, after you stop taking the medication. So what this means is that if you've been prescribed Ozempic and you lose, say, 20 or 30 kilos or more, you need to be aware that when you stop taking the medication, the appetite will come back. And when it does come back, that also means that your ability to store fat is going to come back. Because if you haven't fixed the underlying issues with your lifestyle, which caused you to gain weight in the very first place, then nothing's changed. All you've effectively done is lost weight to put it back on again. This is a huge issue because this time round, you're going to be regaining weight, but with no muscle mass. I see this a lot in weight loss surgery clients. You might be one of these watching on or listening on. So many people have weight loss surgery. They lose a ton of weight. They lose a bunch of muscle. And then they find creative ways to eat back the calories around the fact that they've got a reduced stomach size. And that happens because there's some part of us that's hardwired to actually really enjoying food even if we've got to do it in milkshake form and drip feed form and eat around our restrictions. So I'm going to recap this and just make sure it's super duper clear. I do believe that the coaches who are doing well are going to be the people that they don't say, no, Ozempic doesn't work. The truth of it is, it's got some real merit, in my opinion. Absolute real merit. However, it's got some huge downsides. And if you're taking Ozempic in the absence of having a coach to guide you through the process, if you just do what your doctor says and go, oh, yeah, no problems, I'll take the medication, and you take it like the vast majority of people will, like a magic pill, and you take it and you lose weight, what's going to end up happening likely is that you'll lose the weight, but you haven't fixed the lifestyle, so eventually the weight's going to come back in. However, if you are smart about this and you're really serious about wanting to make sure that you lose the weight, and not just lose the weight, change your lifestyle and keep this off for the rest of your life so that you can go and play with the kids, take up your favorite sport again, be able to do the things that you haven't been able to do, well, guess what? This could be really, really beneficial for you. It really could be. Now, like I said at the top, I'm not sure that it's really freely available to the general market in anywhere else but anywhere else but the US. Having said that, I'm hoping this little bit of education goes away to helping to really just underline the 3 key points that I wanted to make. Number 1, you have to get your protein intake in. Number 2, you have to do sufficient resistance training. And number 3, the moment you stop taking the medication, the appetite will return. And if you haven't fixed the underlying issues that caused you to gain weight in the first place, then it's highly likely that you're just going to reverse back to the exact position that you were at the start, but worse because now you've lost muscle. Does this make sense, guys? Hopefully that's a good kind of punchy all-round look at the subject. If you guys have any questions, certainly pop them in the comments and I'm happy to answer them. But other than that, this has been the Better Body Academy podcast, coming to you with another short episode, this one on how to get across Ozempic and do it in a way that is not too damaging to your long-term fat loss. Guys, I'll see you in the next episode. Okay, team. So if you're watching on live, let me know if you have any questions. So I'm going to read out a couple of comments perhaps. And TikTok, if you would like to ask anything, or Instagram, if you'd like to ask anything, please pop them in the comments. I'll read them out. My mum has been on this for a long time. There are side effects. I reckon it should be kept for people that need it, not people wanting to cheat weight loss. Yeah, you know what? Like that's a pretty kind of fair opinion, I think. However, what we need to understand is like some people are in a situation where they're literally so big they can't move. It's so inhibitory to their lifestyle. They can't get going. And so I think that the big thing, and I want to shout out, by the way, my boy JJ, because not only has he gone the Ozempic route predominantly for diabetes management, but he's also got a coach. And the whole reason that I'm actually doing this short training is because I spoke to Mikey about his onboarding call and then drew that to the attention. And so now we can guide him in the right way. So we need to make sure that we're getting our protein in, JJ, we're getting our resistance trainings, and we don't need to do it all next week, but we need to be building those lifestyles in, right? Probably the default position for a lot of people is just to go to weight loss surgery. And unfortunately, the consequences of weight loss surgery are, yes, there's some huge benefits if it's done right, but equally there's some massive downsides, some huge downsides, that one of them being it's like partially irreversible. Your relationship with food is going to be ruined permanently, right? So it's a big, big thing. And I don't mean that in any negative way at all. My mum has MS, so she's been prescribed it for her doctor. Just wanted to clarify. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, hopefully it's helpful, Lisa and Michaela. If there's any other questions, I'm happy to answer them, guys. We got anything on TikTok at all? Okay, cool. I think that's it. If you are not already subscribed to the Better Body Academy podcast, you can just go on the Apple or Spotify players and you can get it here. I'll see you guys in the next episode. Hope everyone's having a beautiful, beautiful day.